Hey guys, this is Faster U4 brought to you by Fitland, Tailwind Nutrition, Biomax and Capital Cycles. If you're a cyclist, you want to go faster? Then let's giddy up there. Yeah guys, get it on! Welcome back to Faster U4 brought to you by Fitland, Tailwind Nutrition, Biomax and Capital Cycles. Our mountain bike race yesterday. Let me tell you some significant things I learned all about mountain bike racing. I'll show you some comparison data. We'll find out what happens when you get... Shut up, dog! When you get an old ex-mountain bike road racer on a fully rigid hardtail, no suspension, and you race against everyone. Again, we'll do some comparison data to find out how well me on that bike goes uphill, how well it goes downhill, and what the differences was using the comparison tool in Strava, and some wider thoughts. So, if you're looking at the screen, if you're not, this is my Hongfu hardtail. And it's just a XTR mix, a few nice little lightweight components in there, alloy titanium bolt kits, carbon bar, Gucci seat post, and what is basically a copy of a Niner rigid fork, carbon fork on there. Whole bike comes in at about 19 pounds. Dry. So that's obviously a bike which is going to be very fast on smooth, any pretty smooth circuit, but it's going to suffer when it gets rocky or descending. And so I've sort of done some real world measurements about what that was like yesterday. Some thoughts about that versus hardtail, like front suspension versus dual suspension, and some real world examples. So yeah, I'll tell you about that. I also have a fork I can put onto that, a RockShox Reba 100mm, which I've run a bunch of times. And I also have from Hongfu, which I've written about before on my blog, Steve Bale's cycling blog, Fast U Full, the full suspension 100mm travel cross country full suspension bike. From Hongfu. By the way, this bike, I raced this bike a bunch, 20, 30, 40, 50 races about 3 years ago. I sold it to my friend Jared. He raced a bunch on it and really gave it a pretty good thrashing. And then I bought it back off him when he bought a dual suspension bike a few months ago. And that bike, her name's Dolores, is it's I'm not going to say good as new because that would imply that the paint was perfect and everything. But I mean, this is a classic example of a surprising quality you get in these Chinese unbranded frames. If you don't know what I'm talking about, in short, there's some version of events where large Chinese carbon manufacturers find that some of their designs are not licensed by big companies, and in short they have hardware like molds and carbon to use, no large companies paying them wads of cash to license that design. So what do? They make frames anyway, stick them on the secondary market like eBay, or they sell them direct through a manufacturer like Hongfu, Dingfu, Great King Bike. There's a million of them out there, just look on AliExpress. And there's bikes like this. Now, frame weight, I did strip it and just weigh the frame. So it's a little heavier than a top end, something you might get. And it's probably like, maybe some of the manufacturing isn't as pretty. Like, they probably leave the mold balloon in there and maybe it's not gets cleaned up as nice. But look, generally it's pretty good. So, and as far as like the modulus of the carbon layout, I don't know. It's been a long time since I had really high-end carbon mountain bike to compare it to. I will say I've had a number of road bikes from these Chinese carbon manufacturers and track bikes, and I will say I've gone back to branded bikes. I ride a Chapter 2 and a Cannondale. They do ride, I think, a little nicer, and I think it's probably less to do with weight, less to do with carbon type and all that, because they all use Toray. Really what you're looking at is maybe carbon layout. Maybe that's a little more time consuming. I don't know, and they seem to be maybe a touch lighter, the branded frames, and maybe ride a little nicer. But if you're on a budget, you really can't go too wrong, and I hope that old Dolores attests to the generally what I've found to be pretty reliable Chinese carbon bikes. So let's have a look at data from yesterday's PNP Spring Series Round 5, held on my doorstep here at Macquarie Peak. So it was interesting because it's the first mountain bike race I've lined up in over 2 years now. I've been racing on the road races, stage races, time trials, even on the track, and so I wasn't sort of sure how it would go. I've been doing a little bit of mountain biking. Also damaged my knee in the last few weeks, but that seems to be pretty good now. Sort of get back into a feel of it. And I did quite enjoy it, and I enjoy the trails at Macquarie Peak. And I guess maybe one thing I noticed from, let's just say, from the gun, I tell my riders, mountain bike riders, a lot. One thing I learned from many years of mountain bike racing was you really want to be at the front, at the start, in the grid if you can, and really make an effort to get into the single track first, or up front as far as you can, so that you're not being held back. And I didn't do that yesterday. I don't really know why. Maybe it was like a lack of confidence. I just didn't want to sort of be in anyone's way. I found that actually for the road sprint to get back into it, I would have been fine. Plenty of power, but ultimately I didn't take my own advice. I did get trapped behind a bunch of riders, and the first 5 minutes up Koru, 10 minutes wasn't great because I was trapped behind a bunch of riders. So maybe lesson number one is really, it's true, you want to get that whole shot the best you can. So let's have a look at this. I mean, it's pretty long for a XCO style race these days. We had 1 hour, 48, 26.6 Ks, climbing of 823 metres, so over 400 metres per lap. Going up, the biggest climb being going up a trail called Peak Flow, which is normally down only, but we've got them closed off for race day so we could go up it. And that was interesting, and that'll form part of the data I'll show you in a minute about how fast a fully rigid bike can be on a climb versus descending. And it's surprising, I'll tell you that. What do we got here? Average power of 245 watts, but look, normalized power 307. Huge discrepancy here, because in a mountain bike race, power delivery is so much more stochastic. Cadence 89. So, training load of 100. And I think that got me second place in the Masters 2 grade behind Gav Wheelworks McCarthy. Now, I did take a wrong turn, and I figured it out. I took a wrong turn. I took one part of it, I took a trail where I shouldn't have, and that cost me about somewhere between 2.5 to 3 minutes doing Nikau Valley instead of the Kanuka Trail, and that was a similar time gap between me and Gav. I think he still would have had me in the end, but it was good. So that's how it went. Look, I think it's all needs to be said about that, because the real most interesting part is all in the analysis. So let's have a look here. What do we got? Oh, look, maybe we should just go through results first. We had Max Wickens taking the Open Men, Anne Hun crushing it in the open women. Sport men Stephen Cox, under 11 men Cuba Salk, under 13 men Finn Holmes, Ben Mitchell winning under 15 men and winning the series, I think. Really good for him. Sam Grimwood in under 17. The Masters won Ryan Steer, but my man Kane Caulfield winning the series as a whole. And that, my friends, as a side note, is the notion of it's a war, not a battle. Keep collecting those points, keep at it. You can end up on the top step. My man Kane stayed true. He also did win one of the races, FYI. Gav is winning against me a couple of minutes ahead of me in the final. Mike Hunt taking Master Men 3. Sophie his win, under 11 women. I've seen Sophie and her brother Wayne Hiscock's kids grow up from tiny little babies. Actually, not even from that, from when they were a twinkle in the eye, all the way up to now to see them doing a great job. Motorboat racing, it's nice to see. Under 15 women, Lara Komiski, and under 17 women, Millie Day. So, 96 races or something, a good race. So let's look at this comparison stuff I was talking about. So what I did is I went and made a Strava segment, which is called PMP Spring Series 5 Long Lap. That's because there was 2 lap types for this race. There was a long lap and a short lap. Open men did 2 long laps, 1 short lap. Masters men grades did 2 long laps, and various versions of that for the other grades. So I made this segment called the long lap, and so because I wanted to get an idea. I mean, this race, you can see from the profile, it's kind of like divided into 2 really. You've got a long climb of Karoo, some undulating stuff. It's relatively flat, lazy magic carpet, and then up a long way up. First smoking and then peak flow, and that's the main part where I was going to be good on my fully rigid bike, and then of course it's going to suffer on the descent. How much? Well, let's have a look. So I've got a comparison here. I'm the black line. If you're looking at the screen, it's the comparison tool in Strava Summit, and so you can click on other people down here to give you a worm line, giving you a relative picture of how much further ahead, further or back than they were from you at the same part on the course. So ultimately, you're using this to see where you were good, but where you need to improve. So up against the winner of the Open men, by the summit, the first half of the lap, I had lost 1 minute and 2 seconds to Max Wickens, and I had gained 1 minute 46 seconds on Gav. So let's just do the comparison between 2 old dinosaurs, Gav McCarthy and Steve Bale. Pretty similar ability all round. Maybe I'm a little better climber, maybe he's a little better descender, but it probably depends on the course, depends on the day. So it's actually not a bad control. So up to the summit there, as I said, I had gained, and most of this was on peak flow, 1 minute 46 seconds. The bottom of peak flow, I had about a minute, so I gained the best part of a minute up peak flow. Now look what happens as we come downhill. And by the way, these descents, mostly Leaping Lizard, mostly Leaping Lizard, super smooth and fast. Like, if there's a one type of descent that would be good for a bike like mine, it would be that. And look how much time I lose, so I'm starting almost 2 minutes up. In the space of that whole descent, that Leaping Lizard descent, which is about 1 kilometre, 2 kilometres, he's gained almost a minute back on me. Through the rougher sections, undulating stuff, Super Kanuka, he's gaining all the time. And then through down to the final parts down Swig and Starfish, just gaining more and more time. Ultimately, he gained all of his time back, his 1 minute and 46 seconds, just before the finish line. Maybe, right at the bottom of Swig and Starfish with about 100 metres to go, he pulled it back and ended up having a faster lap time than me. So here's what I'm saying is from that, you would see, well, sort of what you'd expect. A lot of time lost. It's not, I had this thought in my mind where, maybe if you're running a very a rigid setup, you would gain so much time in the climb that it might make up for it in the descent. But it really, I don't think it does. And even more so on the fact that this is a smooth course. So it's really interesting to see how much you lose. So let's do a bit more of a drill down just into how much you lose on an average medium technical cross-country descent. So just go into the Swig Starfish section. So Swig Starfish, if you don't know, is the last couple of Ks of this course, this long lap. So it's 1K. Minus 10% grade, you lose 96 metres. You're not wildly technical by a lot of standards, but a few braking bumps, a few sections where suspension could come in handy. Let's see how much I lose between my fully rigid setup and my dual suspension setup. We'll look at my results here. You can see most of the time, pretty consistently, I'm capable of somewhere around 2.5 minutes. Somewhere between 2:25 and 2:45. That would be, I've done that descent a million times in that sort of range. So pretty consistently, 2 minutes 30, say 2 minutes 40, to be a little on the safe side. That's on, some of those actually set on a hardtail, but most of those set on my dual suspension setup. Well, yesterday, 3 minutes 42 and 3 minutes 48 respectively on, I guess, lap 1 and lap 2. So what I'm saying is just in that 1 kilometre, 1 minute time loss just from the super rigid setup, which is massive. So look, I mean, I guess you could summarise it by saying, no, I don't think for pretty much any course, unless it's a really unusual course where maybe there's lots of gravel road or paddocks or something, even then it might be quite rough. You really gain a lot from suspension. So I think the best setup for me is probably going to be hardtail front suspension. Although I've got to say, don't sleep on this notion that with the dual suspension, but you can really power up some of those climbs pretty strong. Maybe what I could do here is just show you, so I'm way down on the descending. I don't lose as much time on something like Leaping Lizard because it's much smoother, but anytime it's vaguely technical, yeah, it's not great. Why don't we just quickly have a look then at how this old mountain biker goes up a long climb that's a little more suited, not perfectly suited, but pretty well suited to my setup. This is the climb on the aforementioned up peak flow. And if we do some comparison here, I did okay for an old unit. I got the 7th fastest time yesterday, 7 minutes 44. Callum Kennedy somehow ripping out a 6 minute 21. I don't know if something weird happened with the GPS on that one, because it looks like all of that minute he took in the first 150 meters of the climb when I use the comparison. Well, you can see there, if you're looking at the screen, I'm the black, he's the pink. And that first 300 meters or so gains a minute, 21 seconds. Yeah, I'm not sure if the GPS is winding up. The rest of the climb, we're pretty much neck and neck. Calum Chamberlain wasn't racing, so I'll delete him. Here we go. So looks like I was 5th fastest. Callum. So we got Caleb Botcher, 7 minutes 17. Max Wickham 7:21. Dylan Reed 7:34. Me on 7:44. And look at this as well. Old roadie Andy Hagan, 7 minutes 46. Only 2 seconds behind me. But sorry Andy. Either you were messing around, or you're actually a worse descender than me. Which, you know, that's what I call a road racer. A thoroughbred road racer. If you want to see a thoroughbred, a guy who's built just for going uphill, this is a road racer called Michael Rasmussen. What you want to do is Google search that unit. He's possibly the skinniest guy ever to race a bike. And you know, his time trial, and I think the final time trial of Tour de France around about, let's say 2007, something like that. Just a comedy of falling off in every conceivable corner. But you can see, if I click on all these guys, take away Callum because it looks a bit weird. If I look at all these other guys ahead of me, very similar. They're just gradually putting out a little time on me, mainly because they're fitter and faster and stronger and lighter. But I'm holding on to them pretty good. And I don't think, you know, if I'd had a suspension fork or even a dual suspension, I don't really think it would have saved me that much time. So, look, long story short, yeah, it's fun to ride a fully rigid setup. Not that fast in a real world race situation, and I think there's a little bit of evidence there to back that up. Alright, because we've got the hot vacuum cleaner action in the background, I'll cut this short. You know, thank you to PMP for running the series and the race yesterday. It's really enjoyable. Great spot prizes always. Great company. Great weather. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much. Great to see a lot of old friends there I hadn't bumped into in a while. Lovely to see you guys. I really mean it. I enjoy seeing you all. Particularly proud of my riders who did really well yesterday. John Grimwood, Erwin Kurbis. We had Kane Caulfield taking out the master one. Super proud. So I'll leave it there as always. If you'd like a training plan from me, Steve at fitlab.co.nz. Go to fitlab.co.nz. As always, it's brought to you by FitLab, Tailwind Nutrition, Biomax and Capital Cycles, and I will see you on the weekend. Yeah, get it on, guys. Sorry about the abrupt end to the bit where I was talking about the cramp fix, but yeah, that's because my audio cut out. Doesn't matter. Here's what you're going to do. Go to 022sports.co.nz. You're going to enter the code. Well, click on cramp fix. Have a look. See if I'm not describing it wrong. And you're going to go and put in capitals FitLab 10, FITLAB capitals 10. Get 10% discount on your order. And for insurance against cramp, I think it's not bad. I'd give it a try. Tell me what you think. All right, thanks guys. FitLab 10, 022sports.co.nz. Good times.